Okay,
What are you
and
What are you pouring yourself there? You got like a sipping jug?
oh gosh, no, it's Coke.
Oh, okay.
No, I gave that up a while back. Um, but I guess in the famous words of Bill O'Reilly, we'll do it live. Um, okay, so we are officially live, and that was quite the hang up from man, yeah. Okay, so we're live. It has been how long since you've been on YouTube officially?
3 years was my last upload, and 6 years since I was uploading regularly.
And your last video was of a cut down brown bass.
Yep. I cut down brown bass carving.
Okay.
Oop, 1 second. Let me stop that delay. Okay.
Oh, okay, yeah. Oh man. So how does it feel to be back on YouTube in a live
Well,
forum?
it's definitely different. Uh, like you said, we have to figure this thing out. It's in some ways easier than Google Hangouts was, but that goes to show you how long it's been since I've been on here, because that's the last application I used was Google Hangouts.
Yeah. Yeah. That's similar. There was a different program. I was on one, I think it was last week with 11 Bang Bang, and they used a different format that I was not familiar with, and I felt very outdated. And trying to get this thing set up, it took us what 16 minutes to figure it out. So yeah, I feel a little old, but hey, we're here now. So
Yep.
are you able to see the background of the Patriot?
No, I can't see that. All I see is you and some really cool World War I stuff.
Oh yeah, I've been doing a lot of those videos here lately. So I think tonight we're talking about the Patriot. Well, for of course it's going to go down rabbit holes and tangents and all that stuff, and we might wind up on World War I. You never know. But
Fine.
so with the Patriot,
I'll set my phone up to the side with the live on it so I can see that.
yeah, that'll work.
Yeah, that's how high tech I am.
Yeah,
I'll just keep setting up mobile devices until we get it right.
I've done the same. I've got it pulled up so I can read the comments and everything. I'm sure there's probably a much easier way to do this, but
Yep.
yeah. But here we are. So so with the Patriot, the movie starring Mel Gibson and how he single-handedly took out like a whole company of British soldiers and all that stuff. What are some like historical accuracies about the movie that you like, and then maybe some historical inaccuracies? Sorry to kind of hit you with that kind of question.
Well, honestly, I think The Patriot visually is probably one of the most beautiful war movies that there is. The reenactors on it got a lot more right than they got wrong. Are there some silly things in The Patriot, like a lot of times you'll see the actors that are portraying the British, they'll like really look out of the way before they shoot their besses. And I don't know if that was like an insurance thing where they were telling them, hey, you need to look away and close your eyes, or we're not going to cover you for insurance, or what that was.
Yeah,
But you know, barring that, the uniforms of the redcoats are gorgeous, and it's a whole level above, I think, even Gettysburg. It kind of approaches the level of movie that Waterloo was in terms of the details. Again, are there things that you can pick out, and are there some goofy things in there? Sure. It's Hollywood, but they've got their actual period packs on,
yeah,
and everything, and all that's embroidered with the GR,
yep.
and like they look really good. Like I said, visually, it's one of the prettiest war films you could watch.
I think so. There's something about the way they did the coloring in it too, and it could just be the red, like in this scene, where they're doing the volley fire, the green set behind, or the red coat set behind the green grass, and the blue and stuff like that. Another thing that I really liked regarding uniforms was like the militia on how they made them look like the everyday man back then.
Hmm.
Um, and then also like during their Valley Forge scenes where you had just this dilapidated army freezing, and they did it really in such a way that you could almost feel cold basically watching that. It was pretty interesting how they were able to do that.
Yep. Yeah, and I just don't think we are ever going to see movies like that again because of CGI now. I mean, you can look and you can see like the embroidery,
Yeah.
and even though they've got extras that I'm sure are wearing lower quality uniforms, as somebody that did reenacting, I'm
Yep.
sure everybody that got a close-up shot was either a Rev War reenactor or somebody that was right next to Rev War reenactors, and
Yep.
they just inserted the actors in between them because uh, our Civil War group that I was a part of did very similar things for that Yellowstone spinoff, where we
Okay.
were with Sam Elliott, and they literally took Sam Elliott and a few of the actors and put them right in between us,
Yeah.
so that made everything look more authentic. And I'm sure that's what they did. And Rev War guys are super serious. I mean, as expensive as Civil War reenacting is, you spend like 2, 3 grand a kit.
Yep.
Rev War is like 3 to 10 grand for a Rev War complete kit. It's crazy.
Yeah, I remember when I was doing Rev War, it would be. I mean, I could only afford like the plains clothes, and that's why. I mean, like the regimental jacket itself was like $600 to $800 just for the jacket, you know,
Hmm.
and that's. I want to say that was kind of like on the lower end of quality, like as far as like attention to detail. Yeah, those things are expensive because I mean you've got so much piping and all that goes into it. And then it has to be custom fitted if you want it to look right because uh, everything, it just seemed like it was very tightly fit in that era. So
Hmm.
you almost had to have it custom made, so to speak. Which a lot of regiments did have their own tailors, which is kind of interesting. You don't really read about that much anymore, but yeah, I think they did a phenomenal job on it. Um, and this is going to be a touchy topic, but what about the atrocities that were portrayed in the movie? I feel
Well,
like it
I
was a
think
little
that's
one sided.
yeah, yeah, but we were talking about this before. I think that it portrays the mythos of the American Revolution. It doesn't try to set itself up as trying to be 100% factually accurate, like
Mm-hmm.
a Waterloo, the film Waterloo, or like Gettysburg is trying to follow the Killer Angels as close as possible. And you kind of know that going in if you know anything about the movie, because that's what the directors were going for. The
Yeah.
Patriot is more grand mythology, in my opinion, where yes, it's got some definite, like, really cool historical scenes where it puts historical fiction characters in that historical setting. But um, I think that some of the gripes that people have with it, they're trying to make it something that it's not. So
Yeah.
rolling that back to some of the atrocities that are shown in it, like them burning the church down
Yep.
with I forget where that actually came from. And had I had a little more time, I probably would have tried to watch the movie again before we did this. But that was a
Yeah.
real atrocity, but it didn't take place during the Revolution. It may have been,
Was it 1812?
yeah, I think that may have been where that happened, and they kind of just took the idea and inserted it into the film
Yeah.
because it was part of the story. Because they're having these two characters. One of them is kind of based on a real guy, the Tarleton guy. He's
Yep.
kind of based on an actual figure, and Mel Gibson's character is based on a couple of guys, and they're having them, locked in this mortal combat. So they kind of take different story elements and roll them together to make a myth, essentially.
Yeah.
And I'm using the myth in a grand term, not in oh, that's just a myth
Yeah.
sense.
No, I think that I think they did a very good job at telling the story, especially like the internal struggle of the population. Whereas you had some people that were the loyalists and all that, and then you had the people that were the patriots. Um, I think you see that with the captain. What's his name? Captain. I don't know. It was his neighbor. It was the one that basically turned him in to Tabington.
Oh yeah, I know which guy you're talking about.
Yep.
The loyalist.
Yes.
Yeah.
Um, I think that was interesting how you had that, and then you had the town that kind of, I guess, rallied around and supported the cause, but unfortunately they paid the price for it. Um, but I think like in the back country, you see a lot of more of like a civil war conflict between the two sides of the loyalists and the patriots, where they're kind of going at it. And then you see some stuff where farms and things like that were burned down, and sort of like a total war scenario play out.
Yeah. No, I have several books on the Revolution. None of them are in here at the moment, but I remember reading a chapter in, I think it was Rebels and Redcoats, where it said that there were whole battles of the Revolution that were fought completely between Americans without a redcoat in sight. It would have been just Americans versus loyalists,
Wow.
militia groups, and stuff like that, and there wasn't a single uh, soldier of the crown around.
Yeah.
So, which I didn't know until I read that book. I was like, wow, that it was a lot more like the Civil War than what the Civil War is portrayed to be, because they're actually fighting over control of the government and not trying to secede.
Right. Now, let's see. Someone, 11 Bang Bang, down in the comments section said that the church burning happened at Elizabethtown, which I think that's New Jersey, if I'm not mistaken.
In the
Uh,
Rev War or in 1812?
that's a good question.
Yeah. I know it came from somewhere, but I cannot for the life of me remember
It
where.
Yeah, it's a lot to remember. I mean, there's so much that happened between like the borders of Canada all the way down to Georgia and stuff. And I honestly didn't know that the Rev War went, let's see, as far west as like Indiana at times, almost to the Mississippi
Hmm.
River. So
Yep.
it was a huge conflict, and then of course you had the worldwide effects of it, which I'm sure that would be a huge deep dive into a lot. But
Yeah, the book that I read about it, and I don't know if this one is uh, Rebels and Redcoats or if it is. I may have to run and go get it. There's another one, but it basically set up the argument that the Rev War was actually the First World War because it started global conflicts and then it led straight into the French Revolution or the War of 1812 and then the French Revolution. So the succeeding wars, and there was very little space in between each conflict. The author was trying to argue that that was actually the first global conflict.
I could see that. I've heard that said about the French and Indian War, or the 7 Years' War, as it known in Europe. Um, and yeah, I could definitely see all of those conflicts going up and causing like a global world war, which probably shaped a lot of the history that, yeah, definitely. Yeah, man, it's weird how history works.
Yeah, let me see if I've got anything over there. I should have grabbed. I got next live stream. I'll be better prepared with my literature.
Me too, because I totally, well, a lot of my books are packed up, but I should have at least rewatched, the movie, I guess, before coming on. But you know what? That's a learning experience for next time.
Yep. So, but my favorite scene of the Patriot is the one that you keep replaying. Not that part specifically. I think the cinematography of where Heath Ledger is riding his horse along in front of the farmhouse, and then he's walking through the house after the guy takes off, and you can kind of hear the cannonade and
Yeah.
whatnot slowly come in the background, and then he goes up the stairs, and you go out the window to see them fighting essentially in the front lawn.
Yep.
Like that scene is so cinematically beautiful and way ahead of its time, and it still holds up today. I mean, the cannonball bouncing is a little dated. I mean, you can see that it's CGI, but
Yeah.
aside from a few scenes like that, it holds up. And Patriot was what, 2001?
2000. Yeah, I feel like it came out right before 9/11.
Yeah.
Um, so yes, I think that is a very cool scene, and you can go to that farmhouse. It's called Middleton Place, I believe, and I want to say it's in Virginia somewhere. But I've seen like a lot of my reenactor friends. They've gone there and done the tour and everything, and it would be a really cool place to see, especially with the uh, the row of trees like that. I absolutely love that style.
Hmm.
Um, but I think it's a really cool, like foreboding um, piece of film because you got Mel Gibson talking about him going muzzle to muzzle, and you're seeing it play out right in front of you. It's really neat. Um, but yeah, definitely. So in the comments, Levin Bang Bang is talking about how they called him Bloody Band for nothing. Yeah, because he was a pretty ruthless individual. Tarleton, he was quite the character. Let's
Yep.
see. And I have heard about the bouncing cannon shot. Because
Oh
I'd
yeah,
asked.
that's perfectly historical. It's just the CGI on it's a little dated.
Yeah, and I had always wondered like why would they just fire like one round into a whole formation? But I guess it would kick up different rocks and things like that and spread them into the formation.
Hmm.
But then you get in some nasty stuff like you see in Gettysburg where they're doing canister shots, and I just can't imagine how much that would decimate rank and file formations.
Well, and I think they had exploding shell and canister shot back in the Rev War. It was just more expensive and not as commonly used. Solid shot was very effective, and of
Mm-hmm.
course, it's a lot cheaper.
Yeah.
So once the Civil War comes around, you have industrialization, and there's arsenals that are putting out all kinds of high tech shells for that time period, and you have the railways to transport them. You got to remember the American Revolution was back when everything had to be brought in by horses.
Yep.
So
Yep. So amazing how the railroad transformed, like you said, the industrialization of the Civil War, where you can move mass amounts of troops and munitions from north to south. And then you have
yeah.
people like Sherman that go through and they bend all the railroad ties, making that impossible. But but yeah. Now the ending scene I thought was kind of interesting how they portrayed the French coming in and just obliterating the British at Yorktown.
Yeah, the ending was probably my least favorite part of the movie because I think they tried to end it too quickly. Like
Yes.
they should have either ended it earlier, which I know they wanted to show the end of the revolution so they could tie the end of the story up, and that's all fine. But they go immediately from the Battle of Cowpens to Yorktown, and there's some exposition and whatnot.
Yep.
But that's definitely my least favorite part of the film.
Yeah, it was very rushed for the siege of Yorktown.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I didn't like how in the Mel Gibson has that line where he's talking about Cornwallis, hiding essentially and having his subordinates surrender for him. And from what I've read, Cornwallis was actually sick, and that the American generals had a great deal of respect for him after the
Mm-hmm.
war. When he had recovered, him and Washington sat down and were very respectful with each other. And, I get it, rah rah America, the myth, but I just wish that that part of the movie would have been a little more, it would have been cool to see the noble way in which they conducted themselves back then.
Yeah.
Even though they were killing each other, like there was definitely more of a code of how you conducted yourself in manhood, and they showed it a little bit with Cornwallis dressing down Tarleton, and you're making me look bad. The way you're serving me reflects upon me. They did great with that. And
Yes.
then at the end, they're like, "Oh, and by the way, he also hid like a coward." I
Yeah.
was like, "Oh, we were almost there. We were 99% there, and then we had to go rah rah America at the
Yep.
end."
Especially with the prisoner exchange of where Cornwallis was trying to be very gentlemanly, and
Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
yeah.
that was that was kind of interesting. Yeah.
But
Um,
typical Hollywood.
yeah, you can't. You gotta stretch the story a little bit, and America always has to be the good guy. Which I mean, it is the revolution. So yeah, but I think. Have you ever come across any instances of the British shooting wounded, like they did on the porch of the farmhouse?
Um, no, but I wouldn't be surprised if it didn't happen because
Yeah,
on either side, because there are a lot of situations in warfare where I can see you not being able to take prisoners and you can't let them go. So there were times that, things back then were very honorific and they were very respectful of each other, but also war is still war. So I
yeah.
wouldn't be surprised.
I feel like I had heard an account somewhere that whatever the opposing military came in and they were not able to take care of the wounded and they wound up shooting them. But I kind of wish I had done more research on that prior to tonight. That would have been interesting to kind of dive into. But yeah, all
The
right.
11 Bang Bang had a specific instance of when it happened, so he knows more than I on this fact because my years of nerding out on the revolution was about 10 years ago. So I'm having to go off of memory, and things like massacres are not in the mainstream books.
They
So, but he
definitely are not.
says, yeah. But like I was saying, I'm not surprised. War is war. There's going to be massacres in every war.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So,
Hmm. Let's see. So let's dive into more of like the deeper tones of the movie. And you and I kind of hit on this last night of the scene where it's after they vote on the levy. It's pretty towards the beginning, um, and they come out. Gabriel enlists in the army and everything, and Mel Gibson asks him, "You plan on enlisting without my permission?" And Gabriel says, "Yes, I do." And he's basically disappointed in his dad for not agreeing to go to war. Um, But what's interesting is Mel Gibson's response, and it really hits on a number of things. But he says, uh, "When you have a family of your own, perhaps you'll understand." And it's such an interesting but a very impactful statement. Um, because yes, Britain was doing some pretty terrible things to the colonies, um, but as a parent, it's I don't want to say you're more reluctant to go to war or send your kids off to war, but is there a different way to resolve the conflict? I mean, because I know like during the discussion, um, Mel Gibson was trying to find a different avenue to besides going to war. Um,
yeah, and it sets up from the start of the movie. The whole premise, the foundation that they lay in the beginning is essentially that he's afraid that the sins of the father are going to be visited upon the son
Yes.
because he was the younger guy that participated in atrocities during the French and Indian War.
Yep.
So he doesn't have the veil of the hero myth, we'll say, over his eyes. He knows what war is really like, and like you're saying, he doesn't want his sons to participate in it. And they've got the rose-colored glasses of what they think war is going to be like because they see soldiers marching and
Yep.
the colors and the band and all that. They don't see the battlefield, at least not in the beginning.
Yeah. It's I don't think I've ever seen a movie quite portray it like that before, and I think that was very interesting. Um, the only movie that I could think of that kind of comes close would be All Quiet on the Western Front that came out a few years ago on Netflix. Um, which that reminds me, I'm gonna write that down. That's a good movie for a later episode, actually.
I just thought about this because I watched it about a year or two ago, and I didn't realize that there's an extended version of The Patriot. So have you seen the actual extended version of it?
No,
Because I didn't know it until I watched the Blu-ray version a couple of years ago, and it's like 15 to 30 minutes extended, not 5 minutes extended.
see, I've only seen like some of the deleted scenes, but those would have equaled out to maybe like 3 to 5 minutes, like extra. I didn't know they had like an actual extended version. That's really
Yeah,
cool.
yeah, no, there's a Blu-ray extended edition of it, and there's more lead up essentially. Like after Gabriel's gone, they're on the farm, and there's like dead regulars that wash down the river ahead of the battle. That's one of the deleted scenes. There's also more exposition between the Loyalist and Tarleton, and I'm trying to think of several others. But yeah, it just came to me. By
Yeah.
the way, have you seen the extended version?
No, wow, all these years. No, that's something I'm gonna have to check out.
Yeah, and I think there's more added footage in the beginning because it also shows him after the battle going out and gathering up all the wounded. Like in the theatrical release, you just see the next day they're all in his house.
Yeah.
But in the extended version, it shows him going out in the early morning and finding all of these wounded in his fields.
See,
So,
I think that would have been like, and I know they had to cut it down for time and stuff like that, but that's like really important character development because you got Mel Gibson who's playing Benjamin Martin, who's done these horrific things during the French and Indian War, and here he is, I guess just seeing from a different perspective the results of that, you know.
mhm.
Um, One thing that I hated it when I was younger. I was always curious, why wouldn't they ever expand on what he actually did, like what the things were that he committed or whatever. Which I guess he kind of gets into it a little bit in the swamp when he's talking, but
Mhm.
not too in depth. But I think that mystery, that air of mystery, really adds to it, and it kind of does itself justice.
Yeah. Well, and they kind of build that up throughout the film because Heath Ledger's character is upset that all of the militiamen that his father served with know more about him than he does, and everybody pours him drinks wherever they go. And it's not until towards the end where he kind of reveals a little bit, what they had done, the level of depravity that they had sank to.
Yeah.
Which, if you read I've read a lot of Fenimore Cooper, like the Deerslayer and stuff like that. If you read what the frontier was like, I mean, it was brutal. So what they were talking about cutting tongues out and sending them one way, and
Yep.
cutting heads or sending the heads another way, like that's like actually extremely mild.
Yeah.
It got far more brutal than that.
Yeah. It was when I did the French and Indian War, or well, I guess I did a little bit of French and Indian War too. But when I was doing the 18th century reenacting, one thing that stuck out to me was the raids, like the Native American raids on settlements, and
Mhm.
how vicious it could be.
Hmm.
And I remember like specifically the Cherokee um, in the Appalachians. Like one of the big fears of settlers among them was a Cherokee with a tomahawk because they said they I don't know how they were able to do it, if it was just the technique of them throwing it or hacking someone, but they said that they could open up the chest of a man, of a grown man, in like one swipe. Now, I'm sure
Hmm.
some of that could have been exaggerated, but still, it's just crazy to think about.
Yep.
But
Yeah. No, I thinking of a scene in Fenimore Cooper's book, and I don't even know if what all you can say on YouTube, but I mean, we're talking like tying somebody to a tree by some of their insides and having them walk circles around the tree while you're hitting them with a hot poker until their insides are fully on their outsides. I mean, extremely
jeez,
cruel stuff.
yeah, that's pretty intense.
Yeah. So, and that's the nicest way I can come up with saying it.
Yeah, no, I mean that that stuff happened. It's just wild to think about. But yeah, it was extremely brutal. And I mean, it makes sense why a lot of the small towns had to fort up or like a small homestead. Um, so like one of the events that I used to partake in was a siege of. It was called the Fort of Watauga, and it was basically like this little homestead that came under attack, and they had to put a palisade wall up between the cabins and the barns, and all the surrounding neighbors came and they held up in there. Um, it's cool because they were able to make their own gunpowder and things like that, so they were able to withstand the siege. Like it was an actual siege, and I forget exactly for how long it lasted, but it was enough to keep people held up in there. But
Hmm.
yeah, I mean, just ruthless things that yeah, wow, yep, that stuff happened. And yeah, people need to read about it. It's important.
Yeah, well, we just live in such a world divorced from all that now that people look back on it with rose-colored glasses. That's like I love westerns. Like I've got every western movie you can think of. I watch the Grit channel at night. That's how I go to sleep. And one of the things that always bothers me about westerns
Mm-hmm.
is the noble savage archetype, and that's just not reality. And I know that the reason that they try to portray that is one, probably to get people to come and play the part. Nobody wants to play the monster. Everybody wants to play the noble or the thoughtful one. And I get that. And also, a lot of these films are not targeted at trying to show like the most gory thing possible. But
Yeah,
I feel like because westerns were so prevalent, and not just westerns, I'm talking Jeremiah Johnson, which Jeremiah Johnson does a better job of it because it's about a feud between him and a native. But I feel like they present a far rosier image, and because we're so divorced from the way things were at that time in history because it's so many years later and we're more developed and we're modern, that we don't realize the things that are just under the surface of human nature that are held back by modern society.
yeah. It's yeah, and that comes out in like some of the oddest movies that you really wouldn't expect it. Um, like Cold Mountain, for instance, with the Home Guard.
Hmm.
The crazy things that they would do to the locals just to get ahead. It is just
Hmm.
and that's stuff that that's supposed to be like a romance movie, like based on war, yeah. But I don't think I've ever seen the Home Guard depicted in any other movie being cruel to the local people that it's supposed to be protecting. But stuff like that happened.
Hmm.
But sorry, you made me write down Hostels because that there's some interesting scenes in that movie itself.
Yeah, I liked Hostels. It was very slow,
Yeah,
and artsy, like the final scene where he's waiting to get deciding what he's going to do, and then he hops on the train at the very end.
yeah,
In the theater, that scene is awesome because of how slow and deliberate they move up to it. But trying to rewatch Hostels at home when
yep.
you're not in that theatrical element is difficult. But it's a good movie. I liked Hostels quite a bit.
Yeah, I saw it in theaters as well, and I thought I thought it was one of the best depictions of like the American West with like the cavalry and everything. Um, this is way off topic of the Patriot, but it's okay. Um, I liked how at the end of the movie you've got the captain or Christian Bale who's gone through a lot, absolutely just hates all the natives and everything, and then he becomes compassionate towards them, and then he winds up having to fight off these settlers, and he goes back into that savage mode. And I
Yeah.
was like, man, that is a really good ending. And then to top it off, it ends with a train scene, which was even better than I could have imagined. So yeah,
Yeah. Well, and you think of it, I mean, I've even read historically that that's fairly common that enemies much later in life end up being friends because they have that shared experience. So I wouldn't be surprised at all if that happened back at that time. And in fact, I know it happened like with the Civil War because you not only can you read about it, but when early films started coming out, you can see Civil War soldiers talking to each other on YouTube if you just
yes.
Google it. And they're very friendly with each other because they have that shared experience.
You've
And
also,
then,
yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
no, go ahead.
One of the big modern ones that I can think of is Hal Moore and the Vietnamese general that was there in the Ia Drang, where they
Hmm.
met up years after and they uh, talk about what each position was during the battle. And I think both of them had quite a bit of respect for each other after that.
Hmm.
Now I think that's pretty cool. I often wonder now thinking about that, like how I wonder how Custer and like Crazy Horse would have been or Sitting Bull, like had Custer survived.
Yeah.
That would be interesting. All right, we got quite a bit of comments down here, and I don't mean to ignore everybody, but that was a pretty good tangent.
I
Um,
never realized this is the first. Back when I was doing Google Hangouts, you could not, there wasn't like a comment stream, and I never realized how difficult it was to focus on what you're trying to talk about and keep up with the comments. I have a whole new respect for that now.
yep, that's one I'm trying to learn. So let's see. 11 Bang Bang has been extremely active. Appreciate your activeness. Um, so he was saying that the British shooting the wounded was pretty well documented at the Waxhaw massacre.
Hmm. Yeah,
One
I
of the
saw that.
boys that was captured for aiding the Patriots was Andrew Jackson. Hmm, that's a pretty cool fact.
Yeah, and
Um,
then earlier you mentioned that show Turn that was on. I watched the first season of that, and then I couldn't handle it anymore. It had way too much propaganda in it. It was cool at first, but I couldn't get past the first season.
I never did get into
That
Turn.
that and I don't like spies. Some spy films are fun, but Turn focuses too much on what a piece of shit you have to be a spy because you have to live a double life and be a liar to everyone, including yourself. So I just and it like that series really delves into that. So I couldn't get into it.
Hmm. So let's see, who was it that was talking about? Okay, 11 Bang Bang was also talking about Robert Rogers' diary, talking about scalping a Frenchman. And he said that when he scalped him, it came off with like a popping noise. That would be kind of golly, that'd just be weird. And there was people that survived scalpings, which is wild. I've seen pictures of them like from the old west where they had survived it, and it's just kind of weird. Let's see. If you need movie suggestions, I'd love to hear your take on Gettysburg. I've got Gettysburg wrote down
I
as
would
a
like to, if once we get better at this, do Gettysburg because I don't know if you've seen that guy, that historical commentator, Aten Shea, and his breakdowns of Gettysburg and Gods and Generals, but he like totally spurgs out on how they're just Confederate propaganda and all that kind of stuff. And that drives me crazy because there are no Confederates. There's no more KKK. Like most of the white supremacists that you see in the media are all feds. Like those organizations the government totally got rid of in the 60s and 70s. By the late 80s they were completely defunct. Like I
like I
said,
said,
if
if
you
you
go
go
out
out
and
and
you
you
find
find
KKK now, they're feds. They're not actual KKK.
what was the name of that commentator?
Aten Shea.
Okay, so I guess that's the French form of attention.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he does the historical films breakdown, and he has a high budget operation, and it's not that like everything he says is wrong, but he definitely has a major Marxist revisionist bend, and whenever people point that out, he just kind of laughs it off and takes like this moral high ground, but as we've discussed before about Marxism and progressivism that has a moral high ground based on nothing because they don't believe in God.
Yeah.
They have this social justice ideal that's not based in anything. And so, was Gods and Generals, was it a little overly romantic? Sure, of course it is. Just like the Patriots overly romantic. But
Mm-hmm.
was it Confederate propaganda, lost cause propaganda? No.
See,
I'm sorry, dude.
I never got that from Gettysburg, and Gettysburg is one that I definitely want to do a Volley Fire Friday episode on, and I think
Mhm.
it'd be interesting to get a couple of people in on that one. Like that could be a really in-depth discussion. Because I mean, I grew up watching that. I think it came out in '93, so I was maybe like 4 or 5 when I saw it. I don't know. Like it was just one of my favorite movies. Still is. It's got some of the greatest battle cinematography that's ever been made. Like Pickett's Charge is like amazing.
Yeah.
I think it was probably a really bad idea to do it, but it's still really cool to watch. Um, so yeah, I didn't I don't I got more of a romanticized like Civil War feeling from that movie because you get both sides of the perspective. You get the Union and the Confederate, and I thought they did a good job at balancing the two.
Yep.
Um,
Well, that's the thing. Things have gotten so out of control these days that if you don't show the bad guys, whoever they are, Confederates or otherwise, as
yeah,
being like ravenous wolves, if you try to show them at all in any kind of fair manner, then people totally lose their minds and be like, "Whoa, you're a neo-Confederate.
yeah,
You're part of the KKK, aren't you? You're excusing all this."
yeah. It's very sensitive these days.
So,
Um,
and like he talk about the attention guy, he'd talk about how, when he would do reenactments, he got all caught up in this lost cause thing. And are there reenactors that are old fat guys that drink a lot around the fire and bullshit about the Civil War and say stupid shit? Absolutely.
oh yeah,
I've sat at I did lot of reenacting. I've got videos on my YouTube channel,
hmm
big 150th anniversary events with thousands of people, and we went around and saw some wild shit. At the
yep,
150th Gettysburg, I saw a gypsy lady with her titties out. Like we saw some wild shit at reenactments. That doesn't mean anything other than you have a bunch of crazy guys together that haven't eaten a lot, they drank too much, and they smell bad.
yeah.
Talking about the things the guys talk about.
That's it's gonna be the new headline is Matt Murphy likes. Yeah. Um, so yeah, no, that definitely happens at events. As crazy as it gets, but yeah, I just didn't get that from the movie. I really didn't care for Gods and Generals just because of the massive amount of CGI. And it was hard to go from Gettysburg, where they used thousands of reenactors,
Hmm.
to maybe 100, and the rest of it is CGI.
Yeah,
Um,
I didn't like that part either, but I really did like the build up in Gods and Generals, and it's the first half of Gods and Generals that I really like. That has all the speeches, which I know people think are boring, but as someone who did reenacting, I nerd out on watching how they progress from the pre-war to early war, where it shows the Confederate Army forming, and some of them are in like old Rev War attire
yep,
because that's what their militia units were still using. And they have scenes where guys are going to their local gunsmith to pick up their rifles, and like there's this huge hodgepodge. Like whenever Stonewall's addressing the different troops and he's riding on his horse up and down formations, and you're seeing everything from frontiersmen to Rev War to the Virginia regiments in their dark gray. And there's a lot of detail in that as a reenactor I nerd out on. So I love that part of Gods and Generals. But Fredericksburg and whatnot, when they have the big CGI lines going up at each other, yeah, that's a little rough.
yeah, it was a little rough for that. And now I was younger when I watched it. I was probably a teenager. I forget what year it came out, but obviously the speeches did not interest me at that time. So maybe I will give it another shot, pun intended, and check it out because I think now that I'm older, I probably would like the build up of it more. Um, but yeah, that's I'll write that down for another movie to. We could probably wrap that up in Gettysburg. Where's Gettysburg?
No, that's gotta have its own live stream.
Yeah,
That's
you're
like a
right.
4 hour film, man.
That's true. So many movies.
Yeah, Waterloo, in terms of historical films, is probably tied with Master and Commander for me.
I, man, I love Master and Commander. That is such a good movie. Which I have that wrote down as well. um,
Yep.
and yeah, 11 Bang Bang. I'm sorry, I really have not watched Waterloo yet. And I know I said I would like 2 weeks ago.
You haven't seen what? It's on YouTube, man.
I know it's for free too, so there's no excuse. There really isn't.
Yeah, we can't even talk if you haven't seen Waterloo. Like Waterloo and Master and Commander. Those are the two best historical war films ever made. At period, end of story.
Really?
Yeah, they're way above even Gettysburg and The Patriot. Like I said, those films are more mythology, but like Waterloo and Master and Commander, they're way up here.
Man, I thought Enemy at the Gates was like the best historical movie ever made. Just joking. I don't even want to write down Enemy at the Gates. I don't even want to. No, that's no. That doesn't even count. How's the
But you
comments
put the
going?
I don't have a helmet. I used to have a German helmet. I was gonna pull it up, but the major is not there. When they're doing the helmet thing
Oh
for when they're
yeah,
jumping from building and they're pushing the helmet up, but the major doesn't shoot because the major's not there.
that was. I mean, it was a good movie. Don't get me wrong, but historical wise, it's all right. I will. I
Yeah.
will have to do my best to watch Waterloo. I make that promise.
Which movies? 11 Bang Bang did you watch? Waterloo and Master and Commander?
So he wanted me to watch Waterloo, and I've been telling him for like 2 weeks that I do it, and I haven't gotten around to it, and I feel really bad for not doing it. So publicly, I will put that on my list of things to do this week. So Yeah.
Yeah, no, Waterloo is something else. Like if you've never seen it and you like Gettysburg, Waterloo is going to blow your mind. The acting in it is phenomenal. A lot of the dialogue in it is literally direct quotes. Now, don't get me wrong and say that there's no Hollywood in it, but like a lot of the dialogue is direct quotes. And the
Okay.
guy that plays Wellington and Napoleon, very, very well acted. They talk about tactics and they show how Wellington planted himself on this hillside specifically so Napoleon couldn't use his artillery to bounce cannonade around, and it's really well done.
You
And it's reenacted by the Russian army, so it's all live, no CGI. And we're talking about there's probably, I don't know, but I would guess there's at least 5 to 10,000 reenactors. I mean, Waterloo's like the gold standard.
Yeah, you mentioned Wellington, and that prompted the Alamo, um, which you being Texas and me loving the state of Tennessee, I think that would be a very good one for us to reveal.
Yeah, John Wayne's Alamo.
No, the new one,
Oh, the new one.
newer-ish. Yeah,
See, I haven't seen the new one. I've seen John Wayne's Alamo, which is more romantic than historical, but I haven't seen it.
I can't watch John Wayne die like that. Just doesn't happen.
Yeah,
I was so shocked in that scene. I was like, wow, they really let him die in a movie. Because I don't think
yeah.
he hardly ever died in any movies. I
He
thought.
dies in the Alamo. He dies in the Cowboys, and I feel like there's one other film that he
What
dies in.
was it? The Green Berets? Did he die in that?
I don't remember. It's been too long since I watched the Green Berets.
Yeah, that was. But yeah, I remember. I was like, oh man, my hero.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that'd be a good one to look at. But
When I watched the Green Berets, I was probably like 13 years old in my grandma's basement watching it on tube TV. That was a long time ago.
that is a very long time ago. So my dad, he would watch it quite a bit whenever it would come on like AMC or whatever.
hmm
And I remember we would it's like whenever it seems like every Saturday or Sunday was like always like the war movie day, and it was that or like Zulu would come on, and I watched it when I was in Qatar, and I was like, holy cow, this is like some 1960s like, hey, everything's going great over here, we're doing great things, and I was like, that's totally not how they acted in real
Yeah.
life, but it was a good story. I mean, it was pretty cool.
I have like all the modern war films. I was so into them when I was a kid,
Yep.
and I can't watch any of them anymore because of the books that I've read because I know that they're all propaganda. So these books I do have. So once you read these, once you read Tragedy and Hope by Carol Quigley, The Anglo American Establishment.
Hmm.
This book's about JFK and his assassination and like newly declassified stuff. Once you read, and I mean, Tragedy and Hope is like a tome. I mean, look at that
Yeah,
thing.
well, that thing is huge. Yeah.
So, this is the history of the government and special operations written by a government official. So, this is not like a conspiracy text. And once you read stuff like that and you start to see how propaganda works. Oh, and then there's where is my copy of Propaganda by Edward Bernays?
Uh huh.
Once you get through that as an adult, pretty much all modern war films are become unwatchable,
Hmm.
which is really unfortunate. They just sit on my shelf now, and I can't enjoy them anymore.
Yeah.
There
Yeah.
are some that you can look past that are more mythos, like high mythology, like the Patriot, Gettysburg. I still watch those and enjoy them.
Yeah.
Waterloo,
Braveheart.
uh, yeah, Hornblower, Trying to think of some other ones.
Last of the
Master and
Mohicans was,
Commander.
yeah,
Yeah, Last of the Mohicans. Those films, because they're more hero's journey, mythological in nature, they don't have like the propaganda front facing, you know what I mean?
yeah,
But other films, like I used to love watching We Were Soldiers. Like that was one of my favorite films. I almost joined the army because of that film. Like when I was a kid, that was like We Were Soldiers and the Patriot.
that was
Over and
it.
over, I watched those films.
Yep.
And I cannot watch We Were Soldiers anymore because it's pure neocon propaganda. As much as I like the movie itself and I love Mel Gibson, I just cannot see past the neoconservative propaganda in it.
I think we'll have to touch on that one. Vietnam, like,
Yeah. And I say that because it's one of the better, more fair ones that tries to focus on the historical. And once it gets into the actual battle, it's a
yeah,
lot more watchable. But all the
yeah,
all the build up and whatnot and establishing the characters and whatnot, that is hard for me to watch. But if I'm just watching the actual once they drop men from the helicopters and the eye drank,
yeah,
from there on it's okay. It's fine. We're just watching soldiers do soldier stuff.
yeah. Now,
So
the helicopter scene, I like that was like probably one of the best helicopter scenes. Like, this is what's crazy about getting off on historical stuff. Going from the Patriot all the way to Vietnam, I knew it would happen. Um, is watching like their helicopter insertion. Like it was just really cool how they depicted it, flying at treetop level, and like the color or the shading and stuff was just really good. But yeah, YouTube is not
yeah.
responding. What's going on, YouTube? Why are you not responding?
Says we're still live, so I think we're good.
Yeah, yeah.
At least that's what it shows on my side.
It could just be a pause. I don't know.
How are you able to this is kind of tangent, but it's interesting that you're able to do the little play from the Patriot little scene there without getting a copyright strike.
Well, that could have actually just happened. So I think as long as it is
Yeah.
below 10 seconds, you should be
Okay.
okay.
Well, we just got another comment, so we must be good.
We just got another.
Yeah, I'm still watching the comments come in, so I think we're good.
Okay. I'm just making sure that like it is still, okay. Yeah, yeah, it's still okay. All right. Well, I guess we're still good. I don't know what happened. Maybe the connection went out or something for a second.
Yep.
Um, but yeah. So I think with copyright, as long as the clip is less than 10 seconds, it's covered under fair use policy or whatever. Um, and I wonder because I was curious about, well, what if I have like an 8-second clip like this one, going on like we're
Hmm.
going on an hour now. Um, so far I guess we're okay. I hope so because I kind of planned on doing the backgrounds for like each movie in each
Yeah.
live stream.
No, that's cool. I like what you did there. So, and apparently
Apparently
we're
we're
good. The
good. The
only
only
reason I
reason I
brought it
brought it
up
up
was
was
because
because
it hiccuped for a second, so I was wondering about it.
that's what I was
But
worried about. I was like,
anyway.
oh man, we got taken down. We got we got annihilated. Um, but yeah, no, I think The Patriot was a really cool movie. It was, I think it was very well written and well directed. Um, so yeah, it was, and for all of its inaccuracies, it makes up for it and what it gets right and things like that. Um, the crazy brutality of Tarleton and his tactics and everything and being ungentlemanly like. I think it's interesting that they showed that. So,
Yep.
but
Yep, and I actually like it a little more as I've gotten older and I've learned more about the revolution. Like I've told you the other day when we were talking about this, I liked Mel Gibson's reluctance to get involved.
yeah,
Not just because of him being a father and knowing what war actually was. But he talks about, rebelling against the king and how that is inherently wrong, even though he thinks that they should govern themselves.
Yeah.
And I kind of think his traditional Catholicism shines through a little in that sense. And you know, as I've read and become Catholic myself, I definitely see the revolution from a lot different perspective than I did as a Protestant.
It definitely puts war into more of a perspective, I feel like. Like you
Yep.
said, like when you get back down to that traditional sense, um, I think it definitely does. And speaking on that, we're definitely going to have to do Kingdom of Heaven. That's that's got to happen.
I don't want to ruin that movie for you because I know you like it a lot.
I absolutely love that movie, but I think that's what makes it good because you got like, your viewpoint and then my viewpoint, and we'll just go at it.
Yeah,
Not go at
yeah,
it, but
yeah,
have a good discussion.
yeah.
Yeah, but no, I definitely think that that shines through in the Patriot, but it is extremely subtle. And
Yeah, you have to be kind of looking for it. And also, you have to be a level of maturity because, like I said, as younger man, don't pick up on it. But when you're older and you have a little more life experience, it stands out more.
yes, especially the when you have a family of your own, like that really definitely since becoming a father, like that is like I don't know, it just like resonates. I was like, man, that is why did I not ever pick up on that? But of course, you don't think of that when you're younger. Like you said, all
Yep,
you see is a bunch of guys marching in these really nice uniforms, and they're gonna go off and do great things.
yep.
That's what they're told. Um, so yeah. Um, One thing that was kind of interesting they left out was one of the deleted scenes that I saw, which I'm sure it's in the extended version, is like the hospital scene where they're operating on a guy and everything, and
hmm
they kind of left that part out, which was a pretty brutal aspect of that war with the amputations and all that stuff that was going on because it's there was a YouTube channel several years ago that went through an amputation surgery. It described everything, and they went into great detail on how it was performed, and that was so intense.
hmm
But yeah, well, I think we've done a pretty good job at covering the Patriot.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about kind of our views of the revolution now, or do you want to save that for a different video?
That's an interesting topic. Our views of the revolution. Well,
Yeah. So
I definitely
no, go
think.
ahead.
Well, what direction were you wanting to go on it?
Well, I just think now, as an adult and as a Catholic, I look at the revolution a lot differently than I did when I was younger. I think that the two states definitely got to a point where we needed to separate,
Mm-hmm.
but how that got wrapped up in Enlightenment philosophy and how we went about it and all that, I think that was totally wrong and that we're actually living out the fruits of that revolutionary attitude today. So I kind of look at the revolution now very differently than I did when I was young learning about it, growing up and getting just the romantic view of revolution and throwing off the monarchy and all that kind of thing.
Yeah, I definitely think that it was absolutely like necessary to to happen. Like it had to happen. Um, and like you were saying the other night of how Europe was getting away from religion versus like America that was like we were founded on religious freedom. It even says it in like the Constitution and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, it was inevitable. It was going to happen. Um, And so yeah, I think it was for the best. Now, as far as what they had intended when they set stuff up, I'm not sure how I feel on that. I mean, I think to date it is the best form that we have. But yeah,
Yeah,
I'd
I
say the best
definitely
form that's
don't have
available.
I don't have any prescriptions where that's concerned, but I do think it's interesting how we're starting to see that the Enlightenment and the Revolution, the founders, and the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, it pays lip service to a creator, but because it doesn't enumerate and say specifically the Christian God,
Mm-hmm.
that there's so much ambiguity in that things have progressed to the point now because saying, oh, man's endowed by the creator with certain inalienable rights and just leaving it at that. Obviously, I know life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, but
No, it's funny because I
that
turned
is
to the
nothing compared to Catholic like moral law that they were breaking off from. Like that's like so bare bones.
but I don't think they were really. I don't think they really liked. I don't think they really liked Catholics back then.
No, they didn't.
Because I think out of all of the colonies, Maryland was literally like the only kind of Catholic haven in America at that time. Everything was kind of shunned, and honestly, I mean, even to this day, it kind of is. I'm not going to say it kind of is. It is. Um,
Yep. Well, when I talk about that, I'm talking about like the moral foundations of the West. I obviously by that time Protestant Reformation had already happened, Church of England was already a thing. So, and all the problems that stemmed from that. But I'm talking about like, you had Christian dogma
yeah.
about what man was, man made in the image of God, man has these rights, man has these duties, man has a level of dignity. And then during the Enlightenment, they still want they want to presuppose all those things, but without enumerating them. They want it to just be a presupposed thing when they say the rights of man.
Sort of like an implied idea.
Yeah. And since it wasn't enumerated, we're now in a time where it's your truth and my truth and whoever's truth and who's to say what version we're going to go with and that kind of thing. So I think a lot of Americans for a long time believed that like the founders were divinely inspired and that America was going to be this moral Christian nation forever, and that's not what history has borne out.
Well, it's definitely gone more towards the direction of, I guess, what Europe kind of was at that time. Well, kind of is now, um, where it's kind of godless in a way. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, they've just made themselves God because as human beings we have to worship something, and in
Yeah.
the absence of God we'll worship ourselves, or we'll worship technology, or we'll worship a bomb.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of all the post World War II propaganda and
Yeah.
stuff like that.
Nope. I got you on
The
that.
the cult of the weapon.
Um, yeah. It definitely took an interesting turn. But I guess they did kind of leave it vague. Now that you kind of look at it, it just says creator, and I guess that can mean multiple things to multiple different people.
Yeah. Well, and because not all the founders, but a lot of them were Freemasons, and Freemasonry is very syncretistic. It takes from a lot of places. So their concept of the creator God is very nondescript,
Mm-hmm.
intentionally nondescript. So,
Yeah. Yep.
and then you roll deism into that, which Freemason and deism, they're not one for one, but a lot of the founders were deists. They thought that God kind of exploded creation into existence and then walked away, which is a form of Gnosticism.
Hmm.
So,
I think we should definitely do like a church history. That could be like I could do that like on a Sunday or something, or like maybe yeah, that'd be an interesting because man, that is such a rabbit hole to go down. I mean, we talked about that for hours before,
yep,
especially while hunting and things like that. Yeah, that's one of those deep conversations. I need my books for that, like the catechism and things like that, because that can take so many rabbit holes.
yeah. Well, and like I said, I only bring this up in context with the Patriot just because of it being about the revolution, and
Yep.
I've spent so much time thinking about that. And lately, like I haven't been reading a lot of books about the revolution itself, but I've been reading like John Locke
Yeah.
and the philosophy behind the revolution and commentation or commentary on it by Catholic priests and theologians and stuff like that at the time,
Yeah.
especially the French Revolution. So when I'm thinking about the revolution now, my head is a lot more in that space than it is on like what was happening boots on the ground.
Yeah. Well, I mean, because it affected so many different spheres, and that's what's so interesting about it.
Yeah.
And you
In
even see the
fact, let
same
me
thing.
keep
Oh,
talking. I'm gonna go grab another book real quick, but go
okay.
keep talking. It'll take me only about 2 seconds.
You can see the same situation happen in World War II when a lot of the priests are getting rounded up and things like that. Um, when I went and saw a lot of the concentration camps in Europe, almost inevitably each camp seemed to always have its area reserved for priests, um, and things like that. But the stories that came out of that were quite amazing. Of the priests giving service to the different prisoners and holding services for regardless of what denomination they were. I always thought that was kind of neat, and but I didn't know how widespread it was. So I can totally
Yeah.
see how the effects of the American Revolution would have had a similar impact um, on that from like a religious standpoint.
Yep. I went and I grabbed this book. It's called They Have Uncrowned Him by Archbishop Marcel Lefebvre. And this is more about um, revolutionary theology in the 1960s, but it has a quote from Bishop Gaume back during the French Revolution. And it was just the book that I could grab real quick where I knew the quote was.
Yeah,
So, but check this out. This is when I first read this, it floored me. But this is about the nature of revolutions. So, let's see here. Let me get you some of the context. So, this is a bishop and the French Emperor Louis Philippe talking about liberalism. And the bishop, they're going back and forth and having a discussion about the revolution and how politics are changing and whatnot. And the bishop says that if tearing away its mask, you ask it, the revolution, who are you? It will say to you, I am not what is thought. Many people speak of me, and very few know me. I am neither Carbonarism nor rioting, nor the change from monarchy to republic, nor the substitution of one dynasty for another, nor the temporary disturbance of the public order. I am not the howlings of the Jacobins, nor the furies of the La Montaigne, nor the battle of the barricades, nor looting, nor arson, nor the agrarian law, nor the guillotine or the drownings. I am not Marat, or Robespierre, or Babeuf, or Massini, or Kossuth. Hopefully, my French pronunciations are on point.
yeah,
These men are my sons, they are not I. These things are my works, they are not I. These men and these things are transitory facts, and I am a permanent state. I am the hatred of all order which man has not established, in which he is not God and king altogether. I am the proclamation of the rights of man without care for the rights of God. I am the foundation of the religious and social state upon the will of man instead of the will of God. I am God dethroned and man in his place. This is why I am called revolution. That is to say, overthrow.
Dang.
So, reading that in the context of doing a bunch of study about French Revolution and Enlightenment philosophy,
Yeah.
that like paragraph so succinctly like demonstrates to me like how wrong revolutionary thought is, wrong-headed it is. And that's not to say that it doesn't have a point, because if there wasn't truth to it, it wouldn't ensnare people.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Liberalism pretty much died for me when I read that.
I wonder if that's what the Mel Gibson character was kind of subtly pointing to, and that's why he was trying to avoid war with Britain. Um,
Yeah. Well,
Interesting.
and once the revolutionary cycle gets going, it's really hard to stop it. And
Yeah.
I mean, even in the American Revolution, as soon as the revolution's over, you got the Whiskey Rebellion
Yep.
because everybody thinks they have recourse to the revolution, recourse to violence. Well, we threw off one tyrant, let's throw off another one.
Yeah.
And like the whole quote about the tree of liberty needing to be watered with the blood of patriots and tyrants, like you grow up hearing that, you think it's a good thing. And when you get older, you realize that that is a bloodthirsty quote that has no regard for the dignity of man.
Yeah.
Because who's gonna die? It ain't gonna be the average. It ain't gonna be the government officials. It's gonna be the average dude that's out there watering the tree of tyranny.
Yeah. Let's go to some not customer, some viewer comments. We've let's see. So let's see. Okay, so back up. 11 Bang Bang was talking about. There's a miniseries known as Napoleon that's free on YouTube. Talks about the. He said it's close in quality to Waterloo, so I'll try to check that out. Um, Apparently 15,000, I guess, reenactors were in there for Waterloo. That's quite a bit. I don't even know how many were in there for Gettysburg for filming. That's a lot. That's a lot on a field.
Yeah.
Wow, and 11 Bang Bang, so that wasn't even a quarter of how many were actually at the Battle of Waterloo.
Yep.
Yeah, that's.
I don't even think that you could fit Waterloo in, a cinematic
Yeah.
like frame. You know what I mean? Like even if they had that many reenactors, it wouldn't have done them any good because you couldn't fit that in view of the camera.
Which is crazy how many soldiers would be on a field at any time. Like that's a lot. 15 times 4 is it's like 90,000 soldiers. Then you got all the supply wagons, the supply, the camp followers, everything that comes along with the armies. Oh man, it would be quite a sight to see.
Yep.
And even talk like Napoleon retreating from Moscow starts off with was it like close to 100,000 and winds up with like 40 when he gets back to France.
Yep.
It's a crazy amount of loss of life just from a retreat. Yeah. Oh man. Well, you got any other ideas on the Patriot?
Mm, no,
I
not off
think.
the top of my head. I think we pretty well covered it. Like we said, it's kind of high American mythology. It's beautiful to look at cinematically. It's got the hero's journey with the Benjamin Martin doing the having the sin of the father archetype play out in it,
Yeah.
and so yeah.
Before before we get off here, is that same shotgun hanging behind you that you brought out with the Damascus barrel?
Hmm.
Nice. That was such a nice shotgun.
Yes, sir.
Yep. All right. Well, I guess that probably about does it for the evening.
Yeah.
It's
How long have we been going? How long? I
just
can't see on the
under
thing.
an hour and a half.
Oh wow,
Yeah.
we made it pretty far. I was like, I'm not sure what we're gonna have to talk about after 10 or 15 minutes.
I don't know. We were going pretty strong there until for like I'd say the first 40 minutes. That was a pretty good conversation. Um,
Yeah,
especially for just one movie. So
yeah. Hopefully, we can learn how to stay on topic a little better. I know that some people get annoyed when you start going all over, but maybe not. Maybe in this format, people will like it. But when you're
yeah,
talking about historical stuff, it's hard not to go off on historical tangents.
yeah. I mean, we brought up a lot of good stuff like Master and Commander, things like that. I mean, it just kind of all goes hand in hand. So
Yeah.
it's so difficult to stay on topic, and you know, but I felt like the Patriot was a pretty good starting point. So, but yeah, I'm gonna try to do this every Friday. We'll touch up on another movie or
You gotta
something.
watch Waterloo.
Yes, that is my weekly homework. I know. I will do
We
that.
can't do another one until you watch Waterloo.
Very well. So I'm gonna try to do another one next Friday, or not try to. I'm gonna do another one next Friday, and I don't know what the movie is gonna be yet. So
It's
if
gonna be
you're,
Waterloo. Nah, I'm just kidding.
it might have to be. I don't know. I might watch it, and I'm like, holy cow, this is the greatest movie ever. How could I have gone 30
Oh,
something years?
you probably will. It'll blow your mind.
Yeah. Maybe I'll start it tonight then.
Yeah,
But
no, Waterloo is at a whole new level. I mean, the movie starts out with him, Napoleon, dismissing the old guard after his defeats
hmm
before he goes to Elba, and he's got the imperial flag and he's kissing it and he's crying, and everybody's in awesome gear and equipment and like hmm,
yeah,
gold standard.
very well, very well. I will do my best to watch it this week. So,
There you go.
but yeah, all right. Well, I guess that wraps it up for tonight. So appreciate everybody tuning in and watching, and comments for blowing up the comment section. That was pretty epic, and definitely helped keep us on track. So until next time, or at least until next Friday, then I'll see everybody again. So that does it for tonight.